Hey everyone, welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating and honestly a little bit eye-opening. We are going to track an ordinary Tuesday, no festivals, no public holidays, just a completely regular day across 5 distinct income brackets in India. By looking at the exact same 24 hours strictly through the lens of data, rather than our emotions or opinions, we're going to reveal how drastically different these lives truly are. You're probably going to find your own Tuesday reflected somewhere in this data, and it serves as an incredibly powerful mirror. So let's just dive right into it. But right off the bat, before we map these lives out, we've got to challenge a massive assumption. So many of us are super quick to claim the label of middle class. Actually, when speakers talk to audiences at fancy 5-star hotels, they often ask, hey, how many of you consider yourselves middle class? And almost every single hand in the room shoots up. But here's the reality check. These are often people wearing gold chains and diamond rings. They claim the label, but they literally have no idea what the actual middle class in India earns or what their daily life looks like compared to their own. All right, brace yourself, because here is the hard truth. If you are standing directly in the middle of India's population, the true statistical median, you are earning between 10,000 rupees and 12,000 rupees a month. That is the baseline. The person earning 12,000 rupees a month, who a lot of folks might instinctively label as poor, actually represents the true everyday middle class of the country. This single data point completely shatters so many preconceived notions we have about baseline wealth. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to take a step-by-step journey up the income ladder today. We'll kick things off with a middle-class myth, then look at the daily survival at 12,000 rupees, the illusion of safety at 30,000 rupees, and how the $80,000 earner starts buying back time. After that, we'll peek into the 1% bubble. And finally, we'll answer the ultimate question: what exactly does all this money buy? Okay, part 1, the middle-class myth. Let's stick purely to the data, not our emotions. Get this, the data shows the average employed person in India earns about $21,900 a month. And for the self-employed, that average drops down to just $15,000 a month. But here is where our perceptions get totally skewed. If you are earning just $30,000 a month, you are already catapulted into the top 10% of the entire country. No joke. To breach the elite top 1%, you need to earn about 30 to 32 lakh a year, which breaks down to roughly 2.5 to 3 lakh a month. To put that into even more perspective, if you look at tax filings, only about 1.25 lakh people declare an income over 1 crore. That puts the absolute highest earners into a microscopic fraction of a percent. The stark reality of the numbers here is just staggering. Let's move into part 2 and look at the 12,000 bracket. This tier, it's entirely defined by daily survival. Let's track their Tuesday. Earning about 400 rupees a day means their day starts way before sunrise, around 4:30 a.m. They're living in a shared room where a single bed costs them 100 to 200 rupees every single day. By 7 a.m., they're eating a home-cooked vegetarian breakfast that costs roughly 29 rupees. You know those food delivery apps we all use? They aren't even installed on their phones. Not just because of storage space, but because an average 130 rupees food order exceeds their entire daily food budget of 85 to 90 rupees. Their diet is all about prioritizing immediate calories just to fight off hunger, not worrying about perfectly balanced nutrients. Their commute? Cheap, incredibly crowded local trains or buses, because even a 26 rupees minimum auto fare is a massive luxury they just can't afford. If it rains, they walk, or maybe rely on a bicycle. By the time they finally crash at 11 p.m. after paying for housing, food, and tiny UPI payments, they might have saved a mere 20 rupees for the day. Or, honestly, perhaps nothing at all. And remember, statistically speaking, this isn't poverty. This is middle-class India. All right, stepping up to part 3. The 30,000 rupee bracket, or what we call the illusion of safety. This earner is officially in the top 10% of the country, pulling in about 1,000 rupees a day. Now, their Tuesday definitely shows some minor upgrades. They sleep in a slightly better room, but they're still sharing it, though maybe with only one other person instead of 3. Instead of cooking every meal, they might grab a local tiffin service. They still commute via bus or train, but here is the key difference. If it starts pouring rain at 6 p.m., they can actually afford to drop 40 rupees on an auto ride home. Now, these upgrades give them a little bit of breathing room, sure, but they totally mask a severe financial tightrope. The crucial takeaway here is the extreme fragility at this tier. The data is pretty wild. A massive 75% of people in this bracket have absolutely zero emergency fund. What's worse, an alarming 29% report running out of money entirely by the 15th of the month.
They might manage to save 3,000 to 5,000 rupees, but think about it. A single trip home for Diwali or just one impulsive night out with friends can completely wipe out their fragile savings. There is zero room for error here. None. Because of this crazy tightrope, this bracket is super vulnerable to the debt trap, especially for young earners who are just getting their very first taste of disposable income. It's so easy to mistake credit cards for free money, which just leads to compounding liabilities. But flip that around, and they can also be powerful tools to build a credit score for future home or education loans, if you use them carefully. The problem is, navigating the 400-plus credit cards in the country requires extreme financial literacy. This is why neutral tools like the platform mz.com have become so critical. They're designed specifically to help users safely pick the right card without being tracked or bombarded by crazy ads, effectively turning a potential trap into a stepping stone. Moving right along to part 4, the $80,000 bracket. This is a monumental shift, because this is where you start buying back time. Earning roughly $2,600 a day, this is the very first milestone where a person begins paying other people to handle their daily chores. They've upgraded to their own private 1 BHK apartment, but the real game changer, for a few thousand rupees a month, they hire a cook and a cleaner. This means they've just entered the exclusive 1% of the population who can actually sit back, sip their morning tea, and literally watch their breakfast be made for them. They're commuting on a personal bike or in a cab, dropping about $5,000 a month just on travel. So at this stage, they are quite literally using their money to buy back hours of their day. But let's look under the hood of this comfortable lifestyle for a second. Despite these solid high earnings, 60% of folks in this bracket are carrying debt. 40% still don't have a sufficient emergency fund, and an incredibly alarming 75% are underinsured or not insured at all for their health. So while it looks incredibly secure and flashy on the surface, a huge hidden vulnerability still lurks underneath it all. To really hammer home the difference between these groups, let's look at a simple, real-world scenario: the 2,000 rupees shock test. Imagine it's 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, and a 2,000 rupee unexpected expense hits, like a cracked phone screen or a sudden medical test. For the 12,000 rupee earner, that equals 5 entire days of wages. They have to beg family or borrow money at high interest, suddenly turning a 2,000 rupee problem into a $3,000 debt. Now, for the 30,000 rupee earner, it goes straight onto the credit card, probably forcing them to pause their monthly investments just to cover it. But for the 80,000 rupee earner, it is less than a day's wage. It's barely a blip, just a minor inconvenience paid for with a quick UPI scan, and their Tuesday continues completely uninterrupted. This perfectly illustrates the drastic difference in actual financial security across these brackets. Okay, now we're entering part 5, the 1% bubble. We are officially stepping into the absolute highest echelons of Indian society. Let's explore the 3 lakh rupee a month earner. Their Tuesday happens in a highly insulated environment. We're talking a premium 2 BHK in a gated community, paying up to 1.25 lakh rupee in rent alone. They employ a full domestic staff, think a driver, a nanny for the kids, and they're paying for expensive international schools. At this point, they are completely detached from the everyday reality of the country, living in a self-contained bubble of constant power, running water, premium security, and top-tier amenities. Yet, even up here, there is a staggering vulnerability. The data reveals that 65% of people in this elite income range have absolutely no retirement plan. It's wild. They have built this incredibly massive, hyper-comfortable lifestyle, but if their income were to suddenly stop tomorrow, there is zero safety net designed to actually sustain this specific level of luxury. Actually, we also have to briefly touch upon the 30 lakh rupee a month earner. This is a separate league entirely, seen by only a microscopic fraction of the country. Up here, basic financial rules just fundamentally warp. They own homes worth multiple crores. But honestly, what's most fascinating to me is the psychological shift. For the lower brackets, your mental rounding error might be $10. For the 30 lakh rupee earner, anything less than $1,000 barely even registers in their brain as an expense. The perception of cost itself totally changes. Which brings us to our final synthesis, part 6. What does money buy? If we pull all this data together, we can see a really clear climax matrix. As you climb the ladder from 12K to 30K, your extra money is essentially buying you comfort. An auto ride in the rain, slightly better housing. When you jump from 30K to 80K, you buy time, delegating the cooking and cleaning so you don't have to deal with it. From 80K to 3 lakh, you are purchasing distance, literally insulating yourself in a gated bubble away from the daily friction of the country. And finally,
From 3 lakh to 30 lakh, you buy options. Absolute total autonomy over where you live, who you work with, and exactly how you spend every single minute of your Tuesday. But look, this upward mobility, it isn't automatic. It requires leveraging educational ecosystems and continuous skill development. The source material points out that platforms like WebVita, which is just $1,999 a year, provide the exact tools, community networking, and personalized job mapping required to effectively increase your market value so you can actually transition into that next income bracket. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want you to look at the data we've covered and try to find your own Tuesday within it. It's so crucial to evaluate not just where you are right now, but where you are heading. When you finally reach that next income bracket you've been working so hard for, what exactly are you buying? Are you genuinely building a life of freedom? Or are you just upgrading to a slightly more comfortable, much more expensive cage? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the numbers.